Hello, everybody. It's Connection Point Conversations on Wednesdays. I just wanted to get started right away because our guest today is only got a little bit of time to spend with us. Now, what we're going to talk about today, and I'm really, really curious about this, and I'm so excited to have my special friend on today. So, we're going to be talking about social pressure. Now, of course, I'm of a completely different generation. Than the lady who's joining me today. So social pressure to me means a whole lot of different ways of doing things. Hello, Naida. I'm going to introduce you in just a second. I just wanted to sort of tell everybody what we're going to talk about. So as I was saying, social pressure for me kind of has one connotation because I'm a different generation when we didn't even have cell phones. So I'm really one of those old people. But anyway, I'm used to the whole social media thing. But what I'm really curious about, and this is why I really wanted to have you on, and I am going to introduce you. So hang on a sec. The topic today, I think, is that social pressure has changed for all of us to such an extent, and I'm not even sure to what extent, with social media. And of course, that really is like such a big topic. But I think for me, it's like, well, I kind of know the resources that I have or that I offer to clients around social pressure in terms of just social pressure. But then what I've watched with clients and other people on social media, friends on social media, and what they've experienced in terms of social pressure, it's like, it feels bigger. I don't know if it's bigger. And that's one of the questions is it worse in a way, emotionally, to deal with social media social pressure, but are the resources the same? So I know I'm waving at all the people joining. So now I just want to say that I have the other co-host from Confidently Anxious, Naida Allen, and I'm welcome her here because she's of the other generation that should be. But so welcome, Naida, and I think that some of your followers, they do such great work. These girls, they're giving people really good resources and some humor, and really on some difficult stuff around dealing with anxiety. Now, it seems like a really small topic, anxiety, but you know what? We've all got it in different ways all the time, and how we deal with it. I mean, some of your posts are great. It's like hidden anxiety, and you don't even know it's anxiety. It's like, yeah, that's anxiety for sure. So I love what you are doing, and I'm really appreciative you're here. But as I told everybody a few minutes ago, we don't have much time with you, so I think we should let Naida speak on
Oh,
those questions. So welcome.
oh, thank you so much for such a lovely introduction. I feel like I'm famous. Feel so humble. Oh well, yeah, we love the work that we do. Confidently Anxious is obviously all around hidden anxiety, as you so well put it. And I guess even though we are from different generations, it's still evident. It's still like kind of subliminally in our subconscious. We don't even realize how much anxiety fuels a lot of our decisions. And it even comes to like the timeline and how much that has changed. So when I refer to the timeline, I mean by 20 there are XYZ things that you should have achieved by that point, and if not, you're deemed almost unsuccessful, but that's not actually true. And then when you look back into like school and how your grades definitely influenced how you were viewed as a person, how intelligent you were, and then that's another element of social pressure. But then when social media is involved, it adds another layer because people feel the need to share everything that they're doing now, almost as in a way to prove and validate themselves and seek approval and ensure that they are deemed worthy because they haven't got that in themselves. I think that's where anxiety comes in, because you're so consciously aware of how well everyone else is doing because you can see it on social media, you can see people's stories and posts, and then you feel the need to match that level, and if it's anything below the bar, you just feel like you're inadequate. So the reason I refer to the timeline is because everyone's on different journey, yet somehow we're all striving for the same things. We all want an amazing job, we all want to move out, we all want a great relationship. And when you see those pictures, it's really hard to ground down and go, okay, I'm on my own path, but why do I always feel like I'm running behind? So that in a nutshell is what I sort of mean by social pressure, and how social media is plays a part in that. That's an overview.
You said about that social media fulfills a need in people, and it's sort of seeking, as you say, for approval. And I think that a lot of that has gotten worse in the pandemic. I don't know whether you would notice that, but you've described it really well in terms of people, people needing something from social pressure in terms of that validation. Does uh, and so we're doing it, we're in it, and I've noticed with some of my clients, it can cause so much exponential anxiety, and then having to process, that attachment to it, the feeling criticized and the judgment, but still wanting to do it, which is nothing wrong, especially in a pandemic. We're wanting people, we want to look at pictures. I noticed my screen time information was, oh my God, I've been on the screen a lot this week, uh,
Yeah.
but the comparison, of comparing, we used to do that a long time ago, but certainly not at the touch of a picture frame, and for the ability to do that for hours. So I am wondering, in your opinion, can you, and do you believe that that might be actually worse for people than it was, in earlier generations?
Oh, 100%. Like, as much as I rate social media, and I'm so grateful for the fact that we have this technology, there's this other really dark hidden element that really isn't discussed enough. And if anyone's watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, they really, really describe it well. Like, from an evolutionary perspective, like you mentioned, we do have this need to compare. That's evident. You will always be comparing yourself to others, and that stems from way back in caveman times and and mammal behaviors, where you were always trying to be the strongest so that you could be, survival of the fittest and things like that. But now we've developed and we've got to this point where in our social circles, we're only really meant to be 100 people. And all of a sudden we've now got 500, 800, 1,000, 1 million followers. And we're like, whoa, there's so much here. I'm being judged so much by all these different people, and I can't control this anymore. So social media is just magnified how much you see and how much you take in. And you're writing your own story. I think this is another thing. You see a snapshot of someone's life,
Yeah.
and they're perfect. I want to be them. Why am I not them? But you're not seeing literally the 95% of their day, unless they're sharing it, which is still not very often, not a full representation. So the idea that social media is useful, but also has this hidden element of, you'll always be wanting to be the best and be better than everyone else.
You're bit. Sorry, we're having trouble hearing you because you're breaking up. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear you very well.
It's a bit better.
Now you're back.
Yeah.
Now
okay,
you're back.
Oh.
Hey.
where did I cut out?
Exactly. No, it's hard sometimes with the technology cutting in and out.
I'm not sure where it finished off, but was there a point where it was just completely I can't hear?
No, I tried to actually catch you too much before you went on and we couldn't hear you. So I think we're okay. But I loved how you said, and I have to watch The Social Dilemma. One of my sons actually said what a great program it was, and that is something maybe all of us want to watch, for sure. So you were saying kind of about the evolutionary process and the impact of social media now, and it's big. I mean, we see people criticizing and judging, and so many people, and even Candace Cameron Bure, who's an actor at Christmas, really heavily criticized, and she came back with like, whoa, setting boundaries and going, whoa, you don't do that to my family kind of thing. And she, she 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 obviously is very good at being able to stand up for herself, but I think a lot of us feel bullied
Yeah,
or so criticized and judged that it damages our self-esteem. And
yeah,
yet, thank you for this, I'm just noticing, and yet we have this almost addiction, this need to do it, you know.
yeah,
And I, at the beginning of the pandemic, I was doom scrolling and then thought that, okay, my anxiety is like way too high. I'm only going to look at the news that was important once a day.
yeah,
But when it comes to social media, of course, because it's our, well, I I use it for fun, and I use it for, I have two accounts, but I don't take it all too seriously, but I know a lot of people do. And
yeah,
during in North America during the election, whoa, that was an opportunity for, lots of people to say a lot of stuff and cause a lot of anxiety and upset and, all of that. So
yeah.
can you just say more about all this and the resources, like, so how we used to handle this kind of stuff in terms of resources or skills and tools to not feel so devastated by it. How do we do it in this
Yeah.
new age? Because it's a whole different thing.
It is. It's a game changer. And I think you touched on it well. It is addictive, but you also mentioned setting boundaries and limits. So I really do think it's important that if you know yourself, know that your self esteem is quite low. If you take social media and what you see at face value, then set limits, delete the apps for a temporary amount of time. You know, you don't have to be connected. Like that can cause anxiety in itself by not knowing what's going on. It can create this like FOMO, fear of missing out. But what really are you missing out on? Like that's a question that you need to ask yourself. Like, are you worried that by not liking someone's post, you're thinking that they might not like you, or that you're being rude? Like, is that really what we need to be worried about? And the reason I mentioned how like evolutionary, our brain isn't developed for this level of interaction. We're not meant to know 100 plus people, because we were in clans, so we had clans of about 100 people, and now we are so connected where we know so many people, but our brains aren't developed to handle that sheer amount of compliments and criticism. And I think criticism is the biggest one. We're all quite stubborn people, and that's normal. Everyone's opinionated, and that's great. If we all had the same opinions, that would be dull. But then being told by someone else, and I think that's where the mean comments come in, the trolling comments comes in, your brain literally cannot handle that level of criticism. If you do something wrong, you're called out, you're cancelled, and it's just a bit intimidating, because you're again comparing yourself to how other people are acting and thinking, is this how I should behave now? Is this what I should be doing? And I think it's even something minute, like seeing someone going to a really cool restaurant, say for example it's an influencer, that means everyone's going to jump on that bandwagon and they want to go to this restaurant. And it's how much of your life you want to live offline and how much you want to live your life online. And personally, I would just say to anyone who struggles with that anxiety that social media brings, whether you're doom scrolling or whatever, I would just say take a step back, because it is really not real life. Someone I know uses a great term where it's like, let's take the URL back to IRL, so back to in real life. And I love that because I think it's so apt.
Very apt. I like that. That's IRL will take IRL.
It's so great. And I love it because I just think we've all got so wound up with our online personas and who we portray ourselves to be online, that I think we're losing a bit of ourselves in doing that, in trying to be perfect, which is unattainable, in trying to share our perfect lives, which are not realistic, and in trying to behave as though everything is positive when actually there are negative elements. And that in turn can make you feel guilty if you're in a different headspace from other people. So if you're, not
things, yeah, and not really doing as well as everyone else looks
Yeah,
like they're. Yeah, no,
exactly.
I pandemic and admit yesterday.
No, it's so true. It creates this like woe is me element, and it's not ever really as bad as you think it is. Like, obviously, all problems are valid, and sometimes, especially if you're unemployed, or if you're not in a happy relationship, or if you don't have many friends and you're feeling super lonely and you're an extrovert and things like that, it can seem really intimidating. Everyone else seems to be living their best life and you're not. It can make you feel guilty. On the flip side, you can see all the that people sharing sort of election results, what's happening in America, what's happening all over the world, and then you start to feel even more guilty because you're like, well, at least my life isn't that bad. And it just creates this whole anxiety and cognitive dissonance around what you think is right and wrong, and it just really makes you feel unsettled sometimes. So it really just comes back down to setting limits, setting boundaries, and knowing yourself enough as to what you're going to be triggered by. Because if there are certain accounts and news stories that you're following, oh my god, you have the power to unfollow and not look at them. You literally, like, take back your power over your channel and just go,
It,
I don't like.
okay, so I worked this out with a client last week. It becomes almost like the it is kind of like being an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So we decided that she needed to go to social media anonymous and cut herself off for a period of time, like you suggested, and then sort of do some healing around the impact it was having for her, in terms of her insecurity and her anxiety, and how upset it would make her feel, and that attachment to what people think, and how it was like destroying her self-esteem around that. And
Mm.
so yeah, so she's taking a time out, and other clients have decided that, we joke about it. It's like, but it really, being addicted to anything is the same thing. And
Yeah.
so, hey, we have the control to make that choice. However, for the some, it's really hard. We're addicted to that. Wake up in the morning, see what's going on Instagram, and we'll go see what's on Facebook, and we'll go over here and see what's going on over here, and it's not quite as easy once you really enrolled in the whole thing. Do you see?
Mm.
Do you know what? So, what would you
Oh,
suggest? At
100%. You've really painted like a realistic picture of that. Like, if you can do that, you've done it. I think, like what you were saying about your client, making sure that you take that time out, I really do think it's about going cold turkey. Like, I do look at social media like a drug, and if you do watch the social dilemma, you'll see how much it affects your dopamine levels, because the notifications and the constant pinging, the likes, it is addictive. The more you do it, the more you want it, because you have this dopamine hit each time and it feels good. But what's then happening is that every time you refresh, every time you get an you're depleting that dopamine. So yes, you're getting a positive high, but then there's nothing to restore it. It's not rejuvenating itself. You're just constantly depleting it via social media, via Facebook, Instagram. And when it comes back to self-esteem, if you're not getting a certain amount of likes compared to other people, if you expected to get more likes on your post or comments and you don't, initially, that at face value, you can look at that and say, I'm not good enough. I didn't get enough likes. I'm not pretty. And all of the negative connotations to not getting enough likes come in.
So then what happens is it leads to all of the things we talk about, any of our feelings, is it goes to what you think. So if you
Yeah.
start thinking, I'm not good enough, I didn't do it, and some of it's unconscious, we don't know,
Mm,
so here our brain goes working on all these thinking, and a lot of it's unconscious, but it's still creating our anxiety and our depression and our upset or hopelessness or feeling disempowered, like whatever the feelings are, those are all being created by what we're thinking. And so if social media is driving that
mm,
kind of thinking, it's no wonder, and as you say, exponentially larger than it's ever been before, then you can see why we get our brains, cognitive dissonance, all that kind of stuff going on, and it's difficult, and we are addicted, like and losing and the dopamine. I love it when we talk about the science because I'm the kind of person who likes to really know what the science is behind why this is happening.
It's I'm the same, and it almost serves as like proof where it's like, okay, I knew it was bad, but not this bad. Like when you do
So
see the bad,
yes.
yeah. And I just, yeah, I think the dopamine is an interesting one because it's the happy chemical. It's what and when for example with drinking, that's the first
Mm-hmm.
all that starts to deplete when it because alcohol is a depressant. So if you look at when we go back to the idea of social media being a drug and addictive, it literally has the same effects. So why are there not limits on that? And I think partly, especially if you're now a teen growing up in this time, there really should be some limits set by maybe not even just parents, but I mean a government national level of how much we be allowing kids to grow up with social media. Because if you look at the stats, more young teenagers are depressed and anxious than when they were 20 years ago, when they didn't grow up in the time and era of social media. And I'm not saying all bad. I really hate to paint this completely negative picture. Obviously, it's been so great. Like if you take a step back and look at the Black Lives Matter movements and raising awareness for, human rights and civil rights, it's been amazing. Without this, we would never have been able to do that. We have so much censure and the government controls so much, and tabloids and whatnot gives you a wrong picture. So you now have the ability to develop your own opinion. So it is great that, but it's important that you establish when it's right for you to use social media and when it's not. So if it is triggering a lot of your self-esteem and confidence, depression, any other mental health issues, literally go cold turkey. And because you can't just dip in and out. It's not like with alcohol and alcoholism. You can't just go, oh, I'll take a sip every Tuesday. It's not going to work because you'll still be having the same consequences of the behavior. So yeah, I would say it takes 28 days to make a habit. So if you can go 28 days without social media and seeing
The brain, the same for alcohol, but I mean it is recommended with any addiction you go cold turkey and taking they don't recommend that. So the same with social media. And I love what you're saying, of course, because it does take time to rewire your brain to be able to do it differently. And of course we've seen some huge negative impact of social media, and as you say, so much positive as well. And the negative things are people who are very who are vulnerable, people who are vulnerable emotionally, um, in lots of different ways, just talk about conspiracy theories and things like that and all the new algorithms. That's a whole other tech topic.
yeah.
Then showing in social media and everywhere that you're looking, giving you the same thing, so that you really start to, as they call it, go down a rabbit hole. And those are some really big negative things to it. As you say, how wonderful that we can connect with people all over the world. And I've made friends that I'm going to visit the next time I come back to the UK. I love that, and we all love the same things, and we follow each other. But I know that there is also this other side of it, that of comparison, and I don't think that anybody's completely immune to it. Hello, Floridora. Anyway, so, and I'm just saying hello to someone special. I I think that the positives, as you say, how do we monitor and stop it it impacting in such a negative way? That's a really difficult thing to even talk about. So as you're saying, we have to be able to self-monitor. I really got what you said. However, I don't think that's so easy for some people. So they get stuck in being addicted to it. And again, like maybe we need to start a group, Social Media Anonymous. Those safe group. And they don't want to go on social media.
Oh, I think it should be a thing. Like, it's something that I would definitely love to see enacted, because I also believe that there's this stereotype of what it means to be addicted to your phone. It's like, I'm not on my phone 24/7. I can put on airplane mode for an hour, but I do have this tendency to open up the app, scroll, close it, 2 seconds later, I open it up again. I don't know why, it's just there. I have the tendency to compare, as everyone else does. I'm not immune to it. I'm so not perfect. And I think especially when it comes to how it's had an impact on my own relationship with food and exercise, when I'm seeing tons of stunning, pretty, fit girls around my age, literally looking amazing, and then they share their what I eat in a days, and I just feel like I'm not doing enough. And I see that, and I end up spending half an hour and an hour on my phone, and I wouldn't say I'm addicted to my phone. It's just how much that pulls me in, and then I can go, right, no, stop, I'm done. But I'm in a bad mood because the damage has been done. I've seen all of this evidence that makes me feel like I am not, that I'm lazy and whatever negative connotation you want to take from it. And then I feel like maybe I should go and eat a salad because that's what all the Fitspos are eating. But I don't really want the salad. I just feel like I should be doing it. So I think that's that element of social media coming back again, where it's like, you should be doing this. Or, yeah, and it's the should that I hate. Like, or like, this is what you should earn, or this is what you deserve. It's like, no, remove all of those words from your thesaurus, from your dictionary. That's not how we live life. You do things because you can and because you want to, not because you should. And again, when I say that, I wouldn't say that I'm addicted, but it's so easy to spend that time on your phone. It's not that you're going to be this 13-year-old teenager, like constantly like holding it and screaming that they don't want to be apart from it. You can do that, but there's still this niggling thought, I wonder who's messaging me. I wonder what my post is doing. Maybe I should text this person. Oh, maybe with dating apps and see if I can find a potential match. And it's just, and it's constantly popping off in your brain. The phone's not there, but that's what you're thinking. So yeah, it's a bit of a slippery slope.
I think it's giving people the resources to figure out how to do that, because we can out how it impacts everybody, including me. I love I check this and I check that, and I, do my email, but I have separated out work actually, and I've separated out, my fun one, just so that I know that over here, it's good, and over here I do this, and it does separate it out a little bit. But
Yeah.
What these are the hard things to do. It's like stopping yourself from, flying off the handle when you're upset, rather than, okay, wait a minute, I need to process it and rumble with what's going on and figure it all out before I can, express myself. And same thing with, with social media. How do we, I think as a human being, it's very difficult. That's why it's an addiction, but it's very difficult to figure out the strategies to manage that. And as you say, well, they have to cut themselves off, and in 28 days, you're kind of changed the, but how do you find that middle road of managing it in not taking it personally? I mean, it's really about not taking it personally.
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head. It really is just realizing that people who make comments or who are posting have the same intention as you. They want to they want to portray this vision that everything's great. So you're doing the same, all this vicious cycle. So taking a step back, not taking it personally, means if you're worried about what people are thinking about you, the likelihood is not, because they're worried about themselves. They haven't got time to think about you. So that's number one. Comment on your things, if they ever do comment mean things. They're unhappy in themselves. So often I would say,
Yeah,
exactly. I literally say, when someone comments like horrible things, like toxic things, and you can't control that, online bullying, whatever, literally just reply, who hurt you? Because you know that it's come from a place where they've been hurt and upset, and it's sad because but there again, they're not your problem. And I know we all have very thin skins, but it's about developing that thick skin. And I would say, because I went through, so I had cognitive behavioral therapy and I've recently finished it. And one of the biggest things I learned was really honing down on what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how you can turn your weaknesses into strengths. So for example, my strength is that I am a very talkative person. I'm very sort of confident in that. But one of my weaknesses is that I am quite stubborn. and that can be, so I can be quite stubborn. If I have an opinion, I will be like, no, that's wrong. So I can't say that. So I've turned that into, I'm headstrong. I believe what I believe, but I know that you're going to have your belief, so I'll agree to disagree. So that's very much my way of looking at it. So that will help with building self-esteem, so that you can prevent anyone, like, you, if you know yourself and if you're confident in yourself, no one can break you, because all you'll have is validation from you, and that's what's most important. When you post pictures up, you should be doing that because you're like, I feel great. This is something I'm proud of. If it's an achievement, if it's a picture of you, if it's a selfie, this is something I want to share because I know that I'm proud and I'm happy with me, and I would like you all to see it. And although that seems like, oh, that's so weird, like you're bragging, why should we do that? But bragging isn't necessarily bad, because it boosts your self-esteem in a way. We shouldn't feel guilty about doing that, because it's what we're entitled to. Own it. Like, as long as you're not doing it in a weird, I'm flaunting everything and making everyone feel bad way, you're just like, oh, guys did a really great thing, would like to share, that's positive. That's positive behavior in my eyes. And if you're not doing that for yourself, but you'll happily boost your other friends' achievements, why don't you deserve that credit too? It's about, like, not seeking validation, but giving yourself that validation. So I found that journaling is great, just writing things down. If something triggers me, or I get a weird intrusive thought, I'll write that down, and I'm like, I will find proof and evidence that disproves that thought. I'm like, say for example, it's oh, classic, oh, this person didn't reply, they must hate me. I will look at that and go, that's not actually true. When I don't reply to people, I don't hate them. It's just what happens. It's just life. It doesn't mean you have to jump to the negative conclusions. And then, yeah, we've set boundaries. I love the fact that you've created a space for your work and your professional personal life. That's so important, because you're literally crossing a line so that you know which accounts you want to use and when. And I think speak to your friends and support and find help, and know that you're probably in the same position as everyone else. No one else has experienced things worse or than you. Your problems and your issues are valid, and if social media is contributing to how you view yourself, then you know it's healthy just to take a break from it. And you don't need to completely like say goodbye, but you know, control your space. And that again comes into unfollow people that don't motivate you, unfollow people that make you feel uncomfortable, or who you think challenge you and you're not ready. Don't feel the need to form because you're different. Like, you know, we don't need to make ourselves chameleons at this point. We're all unique little snowflakes, and we're all great. And we all have our strengths, and that's what makes the world so fun. Like, it's that everyone is different, and you know, you're on your own journey. I think that's the biggest one, I would say, when it comes to milestones and thinking, oh, by 25 or by 50 I should have been. Irrelevant. There is no should have. You're literally, this is the same, this is how you should be going, this is how you should be going through the motions. You're here for a reason.
We don't want to do shoulds. We don't want to should. It's not
No.
a good. Well, I love
No.
everything. I've loved it, and I'm really cognizant of your time, and I don't want to run over. So you let me know when you need to dash. I really appreciate a lot of what you said, and it does come down to learning not to take things personally. I do think that when people do negative things, that was an important point in noticing and in realizing that they're hurting in their own way. It's all about them. It has nothing to do with you. They were triggered in some way by whatever. And I love the fact that we're saying that learning to be authentic and vulnerable in what's and embracing, you know, the things that we know about ourselves. That was a really good reframe that you said. I love the reframe. Really good. You know, about how you see certain weaknesses we might have, or things. I'm thinking, okay, so we're going to do some reframing. You know, on how I feel about certain things about myself. And you know, I've been criticized for being sensitive, and yet I don't feel myself sensitive around social media. Interestingly enough, but because I've kind of learned that being sensitive actually is kind of my superpower. Like I used to really be upset about being sensitive,
Yeah.
and really like what you said, I've learned to embrace what I used to see as a weakness, and now I see it as a strength, and that's kind of an important thing.
Sensitivity is such a big one that's almost weirdly condemned. It's like, oh, you're so sensitive. I don't understand how anyone can see that as a bad thing. That means you can empathize, that means you can sympathize, that means it makes you perfect for your job because you know that like you can see people's struggles, you can literally hear and see them. And if you're not sensitive, honestly, I couldn't compute how my part of my brain would work. I mean, that's not to like make other people feel bad if they're not sensitive, but I mean, I find that such a strength. So again, that comes down to individual differences. You look at that as we look at that as potentially a strength, whereas a lot of people might look at that quality as a weakness, and
Oh,
that's again,
and they judge it. So,
yeah,
oh, so, being sensitive is my superpower, and it kind of gives me that little strength to say it, because a lot of people go, but you're oversensitive, and I'm going, well, who says what's the right amount of sensitivity? It's like anything, like who are you to judge how much is the right amount of sensitivity? So when I finally learned to say that, it kind of changed my life in a way. It was like, wait a minute, like anything. Oh, who's to say what's the right amount of anything?
yeah,
That's kind of a judgment, isn't it, and that's on them, not me.
yes, exactly. It's the judgment police coming to play. Just like
I know.
it's like I asked you. I did not ask for your opinion. This is my life, and everyone's always going to have something to say. Like I've done this thing now where if my friends have a bit of a dilemma or a problem and they say, oh, what would you do in this situation? I'm like, well, this is personally what I would do, but that might not work for you. And if they come back and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and it's something that, again, just I completely goes against all of my values, I sit there and go, okay, that's fair. I hope that works out. I'm interested. That's like I would have gone for the completely opposite thing, but that's just me, and that's not how you should live your life. So you do you, and it's very much a you do you. Be authentic, be vulnerable, be confident in your own skin as best you can, and again, that really comes down with just giving yourself approval. I mean, you have 55,000 thoughts a day. You're in your head so much. I don't know whether the pandemic has made that worse because we are more socially isolated. We're becoming a little bit more weirded out by social interaction. But that means that what you're saying to yourself matters so much, because if you're constantly saying things like, oh, I'm so bad, I'm so lazy, I'm so ugly, like, I hate that phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. No, words do hurt. They cut deep, actually. And if that words you're choosing to say to yourself, that's what your brain's going to believe. So you need to find a happy medium where if you've been telling yourself that thought for so long and you're comparing yourself to other people who you think are more beautiful or appearance or more successful, you then have to find a comfortable medium where you're like, okay, I might not be as successful as this person, but I am successful at XYZ, and list down what you think you're successful at. Because your brain won't be able to just go from I'm beautiful, I feel ugly to I'm beautiful overnight. Your brain's smart and that's not going to happen. So you have to find a position where you can train yourself to believe that you are beautiful, and not in a conventional way, but just qualities that make you that person inside and out. But again, it won't come overnight. It takes work, and if you want to put in that work, then hold yourself accountable, because the only person that's going to feel upset is you. Because if you can't be there for other people, you can't constantly tell people how great they are if you're not telling yourself how great you are. And that comes from journaling, writing it down, actively participating in the person that you want to become. If there are things that you want to work on that you're unhappy with, then by all means, please do that. Like, we are all about growth, and with growth comes mistakes. So make those mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and just grow, because the person that you are today is probably so much different from the person you were 5-10 years ago, and is different from the person you're going to be in 5-10 years. So whatever's happening over social media, This is one of my favorite little rules. Take a step back, and it's the 5 by 5 rule. If it won't matter in 5 years, don't spend longer than 5 minutes thinking about it.
That's a good rule. I really like that. And I'd like to just add too that the thing that I do suggest to clients is to question the truth of what it is they're thinking. So don't, everyone has heard the statement, don't believe everything you think, because you know what? We think shitty stuff. So we don't want to do that. So the people we're hardest on is ourselves. And I think a lot of what social media has really amplified for everybody. And so my thing when you're journaling, when you're thinking about this, and because something's coming up, you want to change what it is you're thinking. The process of doing that is actually challenging those thoughts and going, well, is that really true? How did I come to believe that? And really thinking about the validity of those thoughts, because if you can change the thoughts, then you're going to change how you feel completely. And it's way more empowering, obviously, to be feeling positive about yourself and to have confidence in all of that. So you've really brought us some wonderful things to think about. You've been so eloquent talking about this, really intense conversation around social media. It's not an easy thing. And thoughts aren't fact. This is true. Thank you. It's true. So what you think is not a fact. And so it's challenging that fact. Going, well, what evidence do I have about this fact, or whatever. And thoughts aren't true a lot of the time. And I think that that's got to do with not taking things personally, recognizing that other people's stuff is other people's stuff, and that your thoughts and thinking aren't fact. And then take a break. Those are all really good resources for that. Oh, yeah. Somebody fell. Can you hear that crying upstairs? Baby who fell over. And I hear it really loudly, so I keep thinking that everybody on the call can hear it.
Okay. They were just stunned by what we're talking about. They fainted.
My 18-month-old granddaughter fainted. She thought it was really good stuff. Oh, she did watch Kamala Harris when she did, all of her speaking on becoming the first vice president. And so she was sitting there with her mommy watching it. See, that's good social media. That's good news.
Yes. I think, especially as women, please follow those strong, independent women that make you feel good and make you and who you want to be like, because they really set a good example. And
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I literally, Obama, Kamala Harris, AOC, I live for it. Like all the big, who else do I love? Lizzo,
Brené Brown, Glennon Doyle, all those women, just love them. Yes.
Jamila Jamil is my favorite human in the entire world, and she calls out everything, and she's so strong, and she is one of the most, she literally said how much anxiety and depression she suffered throughout her life. And honestly, when you look at it from perspective, it's like you can really get through anything, and that's what social media is good for. It shows people with their mental health and being vulnerable, really opens up that platform and that space to talk about those issues, because then you have a good example and you have something that you can talk about and who you can relate to. And yeah, really good stuff. So that's why I'm gonna leave on a high note.
I know, and I absolutely love that, because we do want to follow people that do help us feel empowered, who and that we see modeling vulnerability and their strengths, and being open and honest and authentic and humorous in all of it, having that sense of humor. And I think that even in social media, we need to kind of embrace that as well. And, and be able to laugh a bit at ourselves and others. But, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. This was our official meeting. I mean, of course, I watched you and Flora's talked about you, but oh my goodness, it's so nice to have you on the show. I really like it. Thank you for joining.
It was so lovely to actually officially meet you, and it's an honor. Like I've watched most of your lives. I watched your one with Flora the other day, and I feel like you have such profound things to say. Honestly, you could put the devil to the test. So
you put me happy to, honestly, you really showed up today and talked about stuff, that I think that I love how real you guys are, and the things you offer. And I couldn't have spoken as eloquently as about social media, like it's, for me, don't forget, it's like a fairly new kind of moving into the whole thing. Of course, I do deal with the psychological fallout of it. And that's why I really appreciated you coming and sharing all your experience with it. I really do. And I know you have another call, so I really want to honor your time and say thank you and bless you. And let's do this again.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you so much. I look forward to
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Have a good
Bye.
bye.
Bye, everybody. Say that's great. And I'll just say goodbye to everybody here as well and say, I hope you've enjoyed it. I don't know if there's anything that anybody wants to ask questions. Um, and and share some feedback. People have been through it. I really appreciate you adding your little comments as we went, because I tried to pick up on those. So it was really really fun talking with Naida, and I'm saying goodbye. And I want to say goodbye to you all. And no matter where you are in the world, because I know there's some people here from the UK, and it's your night, and we're just getting into the beautiful part of the day. It's a gorgeous sunny day here in Vancouver. So I hope that, you got some little insights here and enjoyed the conversation. And I'll be posting it up so it's there if you want to go back and listen to some of it. But I know that she had some great ideas for all of us. So take care. Don't let social media get you down. And just remember those few points, that you're in charge of what you do with it. And you can say yes and you can say no. And you can also change what you think. And I really think the more that the more that I do, the more work I do, I realize, wow, we tell ourselves big stories, but don't believe all those big stories. Try to chunk them down to find out where those big stories start from. And don't let, and if you do let things impact you, embrace the fact that you actually need to do some work around that, and that's okay. And you'll get back on track. And you need to trust too that all of the stuff, everything will pass, and it'll be a brighter day another day. And that's an important thing to hang on to. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye. It's time for a nice cup of tea, and I'll see you next week. I do not know what the topic is, so I can't give you the heads up, but I'm going to think on it. I did get some suggestions from some friends, so we'll see what we come up with, and I'll post it. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you all so much for being here, and it was great, and I really enjoyed it. Take care. Have a nice Wednesday. Bye, everybody.